It's Sports Time with Chris. Today, I am going to briefly touch on the 49ers win versus the Arizona Cardinals, and then I'm going to give my thoughts and predictions on the upcoming Jaguars game. And of course, we're going to talk a little bit about Nick Bosa. So that is really the big news from this week. Yeah, big win against the Cardinals, last minute field goal. Crazy game-winning drive by Mac Jones. Well, not really crazy. Kind of seemed pretty easy, but still. The big news was Nick Bosa obviously leaving the game with a knee injury, which we have learned since then that it is a season-ending ACL tear. So really unfortunate for Nick Bosa. This is his second tear in his right ACL. The first time he tore it was in high school, so obviously gutted for him. Hope he can make a relatively quick, full recovery because he is really one of the best defensive players in the NFL. Obviously, he's been a defensive player of the year, and he's always in that conversation. So hopefully he can get back to being that kind of Nick Bosa. Now, there's been a lot of speculation on whether the 49ers are going to go out and make a move, try to get someone to quote-unquote replace Nick Bosa. And in my opinion, while I don't believe you can replace Nick Bosa, I think for the 49ers specifically, they do need to try to patch that hole, right? It's like a boat. They're not going to be able to repair this giant hole in this boat, but they can try to patch it up the best that they can temporarily. Partially because, yes, of course, Nick Bosa, you're not going to replace him. There's nobody like him. But also because Yetur Gross-Matos has been dealing with a knee injury all season as well. He has been playing, but that is something that has been there constantly. He's always on the injury report with that knee, and you got to think about that as well. Now, as far as who you get to replace Nick Bosa, or who you get to patch that hole, I guess I should say. I mean, there really aren't a lot. That's a tough question to answer, honestly. Yes, everyone wants the Niners to go after Trey Hendrickson. I think he would have a pretty high price tag as far as draft picks go, but it doesn't make a lot of sense on the surface level with him being in the final year of his contract. It's going to be definitely a rental situation. I think he would understand that. And for Trey Hendrickson, he's going to hit free agency anyway. The Bengals season it's going to be tough to go anywhere without Joe Burrow. And, for the Bengals, they might as well get some compensation out of him rather than just having him walk away in free agency. Although they would probably get a comp pick for him anyway. So, it would be probably a pretty substantial trade. And I don't know if the Niners are willing to do that for a temporary rental type of player. Now, yes, he is a heck of a football player. I think he's gotten 16 or 17 sacks each of the last 2 seasons. So while those are really excellent numbers, right? That's probably the closest you can come to replacing Nick Bosa. I just don't think it's in the 49ers' best interest long-term to do that. With how they built things up in the draft this year, I think those picks are going to be critical next season as well, especially with the idea that Trent could be on the way out sooner rather than later. Who knows what Ayuk is going to look like? I mean, there are a lot of things to consider. And if I had to guess, yes, you absolutely have to make that phone call to Cincinnati. But I expect if Trey Hendrickson gets traded, it's going to be for like a second round pick at a minimum. It's going to be a second and a fifth or something like that. Now, that's totally a guess on my end, but that's what I would say Trey goes for. So, yeah, I think the Niners just have to get someone for depth. I don't know, maybe fourth or fifth round pick, and they'd be willing to give up for someone, but anything higher than that, I would be hesitant. So moving on to the game that Nick Bosa got hurt in, the 49ers beat the Arizona Cardinals on a last-second Eddie Pinheiro field goal. That was such a fun game to watch. I didn't think I would get to watch it, and then I was able to, which was great. I went over to my parents' house and got to watch that with my dad and brother, and so yeah, that was a really good game. At the end, the defense continues to be the reason why this team wins. While Mac Jones did play good enough to win, and he had that excellent game-winning drive. I really like Mac Jones, but Brock is definitely on a higher level than him. If Brock had been out there, I think this game wouldn't have been as close. CMC's impact was felt more in the passing game than in in the running game. Something to keep an eye on, especially against stout Jaguars defense. Shanahan really had some excellent game management in this one as well. As far as the clock goes, 2-minute drives, it was a major improvement from last season, this might have been his best game management he's ever had. And I mentioned this earlier, but Eddie Pinheiro already has much better vibes than Jake Moody. The confidence is there. The team seems to be rallying around him, and I feel like there's not really that dark cloud that was kind of hanging around with Moody. I'm not saying he's a dark cloud. I'm just saying there's always like is he going to miss? And yeah, but vibes are already much better with Eddie P. And Pearsall is starting to establish himself as a wide receiver one. I think even when Ayuk comes back, we can't expect him to be fully healthy. Pearsall is going to be the one that fills that number one receiver role. And I think he's more than capable of doing that. We've seen him in he's been great. Game 1, he had a clutch catch against the Seahawks. Against the Cardinals, he had that clutch fourth down catch as well against his helmet. Pearsall's starting to look really good. Hopefully he's good with the injury he suffered in that game. Seems like he should be good to go. So we're going to get into that now. So I was pretty limited on time this week. Didn't have a lot of time to do research or dive as deep as I would normally like to. So a lot of this hopefully is still going to be good quality, but I am just going off of my thoughts with no real data to back it up. So just keep that in mind. This is me giving my thoughts as a 49ers fan who tries to be as objective as possible. The 49ers are 3.5-point favorites, and the news just broke that Brock Purdy will be starting in this game. Now, I will say, originally, I planned to pick the 49ers to lose this game. I felt like the loss of Bosa, no Purdy, Mac Jones having a bum knee, and then the Jaguars' stout defensive line and secondary would ultimately lead to the 49ers' demise. But I have a lot more confidence in Brock Purdy than Mac Jones. And plus, Demarcus Robinson will be making his 49ers debut. I think that is huge. In a press conference this week, Robert Saleh brought up some legal sign stealing that Jacksonville does. Liam Cohen seemed to be really kind of annoyed by it, kind of taken aback by that comment. So it'll be interesting to see how that goes. I expect to see some extra creative looks from the 49ers defense in this game, just kind of based off that. And Trevor Lawrence has thrown an interception in every game this season, while the 49ers have not had an interception in 10 straight games, which is almost an NFL record. They are due. I think this is the game that it happens. So let's get into some of the injuries for this game. Out for the 49ers are Jordan Watkins, CJ West. That's interesting. Now, Jordan Watkins, of course, has been dealing with that all season. I know that he was a candidate for IR. I don't know if that's still going to happen. But CJ West, I know he had a broken thumb, and it looks like he's been ruled out. But I believe the 49ers were planning on having him wear a cast in the game, so that's really interesting. I wonder if that has to do with the short turnaround between Sunday's game and the Thursday night game. And that is something I'm keeping in mind with these injuries, is that some of these guys who are questionable may end up being ruled out before this game. Simply because, while yes, the 49ers would love to move to 4-0, get a win at home, ultimately this game isn't quite as important as the Thursday night game against the Rams. Now, the reason why that one is much more important, well, just look at the NFC West. The Cardinals and Seahawks played last night with the Seahawks squeaking past on the last second field goal, and the Niners will have the opportunity, regardless of what happens in this game. No, this is an AFC opponent. It's not an NFC opponent. It's not in the division. Some of these guys might be ruled out in order to prepare for Los Angeles, because then they have the opportunity to go into Los Angeles and start the season 3-0 in the division. I think they value that a lot more than this AFC opponent that's coming to their house. So with that being said, Connor Colby, Renardo Green, Jawan Jennings, Mac Jones, Ricky Pearsall. So I don't know, with the return of Demarcus Robinson, returning to the lineup, making his 49ers debut, maybe we'll see a little bit more rotation with Juwan and Ricky, or I don't know what's going to happen there. But I do prefer that the 49ers rest some of these key guys in this game specifically, because the Rams game is just more important. It's just frankly more important. That is just the fact. Renardo Green is an interesting one. A lot of teams seem to have been targeting Renardo Green. I think a lot of that has to do with them going away from Diamador Lenore, and Darrell Luter is behind him, and that's partially why I think the Jaguars offense will have some explosive plays in this game. Now, we'll get into that a little bit later. Mac Jones, of course, there was questions all week about whether Mac Jones or Brock Purdy would be starting this game. I saw a report earlier that Brock Purdy actually had a higher chance than Mac Jones. He was a little bit healthier. So yeah, hopefully Brock doesn't re-injure himself because he has to go in. Again, this is a game where, if Mac Jones was healthy and Brock wasn't quite there, I would have preferred to have seen Mac Jones play in this game so that Brock could play in Los Angeles. But that is neither here or there. Brock Purdy's got the start. Now, the Jaguars injury report, Wyatt Milam is out. Questionable are Yasir Abdullah, Diami Brown, which means Tootin will be playing, it looks like. Some of the guys that we've had questions about, at least that I have, Mykal Williams left the game for a little bit against Arizona with the wrist injury. Looks like he was a full participant. Might have been a little bit of a stinger or something. Hopefully nothing serious. And then for Jacksonville, Abdullah, Diami Brown, Ezra Cleveland, and Patrick McCarry and Wyatt Milam were all limited on Friday, with Brian Thomas and Bashal Tootin being full participants. Those two guys will be back in the lineup. Let's get into predictions for this game. So the 49ers play the Jaguars at home. I think this is going to be a big CMC game, both in the passing game and the running game. This might be his best rushing performance so far this season. I guess we'll see. But I think, it's going to be really big for him, especially with Pearsall and Jennings being banged up. Now, I also believe that Brock Purdy will remind everyone why he is QB1. He will be a distributor. He'll get the ball to... Hopefully he can spread it around to a bunch of different guys with Pearsall and Jennings being banged up. Jake Tonjes, Luke Farrell, Demarcus Robinson, CMC. Brock's going to show why he's QB1. Now, on the defensive side of the ball for the 49ers, I do see them giving up some explosives to the Jaguars offense. However, I do think they will be able to tighten it up when it matters the most, and Jacksonville will have to settle for field goals. Now, Jaguars will be up 20-17 to start the fourth quarter, but at that point, the 49ers offense will be led by Brock Purdy on a touchdown drive early on. And then the defense will grab their second interception of the game, with the offense ultimately settling for the field goal. I also think one of those interceptions will be Fred Warner. One of them will be Diamador Lenore. Jags will have to kick a long field goal near the end of regulation and try to recover an onside kick to give themselves a shot. But ultimately, the 49ers come out with the victory 27-23.